crowd broke Imperial Theater grosses record.
Oh,
That is great comment. That is great comment.
I don't really know, because like a show like that should be kind of like a comic, you know, it like exists and then it's gone.
Yeah.
Before it overplays itself.
Ready?
Mm-hmm.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Under Further Review. Andrew here with producer Sarah.
Hey, what's up?
So, for our final segment, we're going to, as we normally do, take a look at fantasy football.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a little bit different because we're not going to be talking about me.
Oh, we will be. It'll get there.
I know we will be talking about me. But I really want to talk about you and your experience playing fantasy football.
Okay.
So, you've been in this league at our work.
Mm-hmm.
This is the second season that we've been doing this.
Mm-hmm.
When I approached you about the idea, what did you say initially?
Last year, I said no.
Right.
Because I felt like it was not a thing I was going to be good at, and I am a very competitive person, and I didn't want to make a fool of myself in front of people who were clearly going to be better at this than me.
You in fact asked me if it involved college football at all.
Yeah, because that was the only world I knew.
Right, exactly.
And only barely even, you know.
So then what happened?
So then one of the people who was supposed to be in the league, he was like going away on vacation or something, and he dropped out last second.
Yeah.
And I always kind of wanted to be in it anyway. I just needed that extra push. It's like when you offer someone a piece of candy, and you're like, "Do you want some?" And they're like, "Oh no." And then you're like, "Are you sure?" And they're like, "Okay."
Or but like someone else takes a piece of candy, and you're like, "Okay, fine, I will."
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Exactly. You want to make sure it's okay first.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Sure. So you eventually did join.
I did join.
Your team name last year was the Pyrite Fawns.
Yes.
The Golden Stags.
The Golden Stags, yeah. The Pyrite Fawns from Head Over Heels, which was the show that was happening at our work at the time.
R.I.P. Head Over Heels.
R.I.P. Head Over Heels. It's having a great life outside Broadway, though.
Is it? Anyways.
So, yeah. But then I thought, okay, because I am a little bit stubborn and also very competitive, I was like, if I'm going to lose, I'm going to at least lose my way, or I'm going to get into this my way.
But you like made it a point to...
Yes.
You went like headstrong into this.
I did. So what I ended up doing was I only drafted players who had a history of concussions. And the most recent report was 2015. So for the 2018 to 2019 season, this means players were at least 3 years old.
Correct.
You know, I wasn't drafting rookies who had gotten a concussion. I was just looking at this one report from 2015.
And I have to say, your initial list of players that you picked was impressive had it been 2015.
Yes.
Because I remember your first pick, and it kind of shocked everybody in the room, was Marshawn Lynch.
Okay.
Who had, by the way, just come out of retirement to re-sign with the Oakland Raiders.
I didn't know, but I also liked Marshawn Lynch from that one YouTube video. I don't even think that I knew whether or not he had a concussion. I'm sure he did, but I just liked Marshawn Lynch, and that's what I was going to do. I was going to pick players that I liked, and I was going to go with the strategy that was my strategy, so if I lost, it was my fault.
Yeah.
I also thought that maybe if people had gotten concussions in 2015 and CTE had developed in their brains, it might make them a little bit more aggressive, and maybe they would have a bit of a more devil-may-care attitude on the field. That was my strategy and my theory. What ended up happening, though?
And this is the best part.
They all immediately got injured and were out.
How about that? Go figure.
Everyone, which I think maybe a bit of a laughing stock of the league, but It's okay.
I'm not gonna lie, you were the laughingstock of the league.
I totally was.
Yeah.
But what that made me do then, because I was not going to just go down and out, I had to do a lot of replacements and research on the fly with the waiver wire. The waiver wire became my best friend. I knew that waiver wire front and back because it was my only choice.
Right.
I didn't have initial draft picks anymore.
This is what happens when Taylor Gabriel is your number one wide receiver.
Oh yeah.
You have to learn how to play the waiver wire.
Yeah. And then I did end up, to your chagrin, coming back from the dead, so to speak, and defeating you for my first win.
Yes, I was your first win.
Yes, which was very satisfying and poetic.
Jesus.
But
this is the second year in a row this has happened to me. I'm like doing really well, and then I lose to the last place team. I did it this year too with Dylan.
Yes.
Like, ugh.
Oh, but ain't that just the way? So that was really fun then, and I learned that maybe I was not. I ended up not last. I was third from the bottom.
Yeah,
so.
you started at the beginning of the playoffs. You were in 10th place, and if you lose, you have to like perform a performance piece about the winner at the group meeting that we have before every shift.
Oh, and I had started writing my song.
Of course.
I had done it week 6. I started writing.
You asked me. I remember you asked me to play guitar for your song.
Yes.
Yes. But you didn't end up in last place. You tried enough that you made it out of the basement and finished in, I think, 8th place.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. And so then a year goes by.
And
then this year you decided to actually try.
Right. Yes.
And it turns out that Sarah is pretty good at fantasy football.
Well, yeah, so I went with a really different strategy this year. I took a lot of notes. I read a bunch of different expert opinions. I basically just started from a blank slate, and I just really tried to pay attention to mostly rookies and sleepers, which was also a way of me just being like, I'm still going to put my own spin on this. I'm not just going to pick players because they're popular. I'm not just going to pick players because people say they're good. I want to find my own team, which has sort of bitten me a little bit along the way. They haven't had as much of a good record as those really reliable vets. So
the popular ones.
The popular ones, but a lot of the popular ones too were used in the first few weeks, ended up going down and out, and then they brought a rookie in, and sometimes that rookie was my rookie. So that's been really fun watching that and having this new strategy and seeing it pay off and seeing all of my research actually mean something and listening to different experts. And I also can't wait at the end of this to go back to my original notes and see where I went wrong and what was right and who I should be listening to. But yeah, I was first for a while. Now I'm like 5, 6, but
you did end up missing the playoffs.
I just by a hair.
Yeah,
just by a hair.
That's what happens. You can't lose your last 2. And kind of backed into it happened. You're not the first person that this has happened to.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah, I kind of felt like a plane going down a little bit though, because I could see it happening and I just didn't really have it was also unfortunate because in both of my last couple of games, I ended up switching out a defense or switching out a player and benching something else because the one that I was putting in had this amazing streak going on for something that was on the waiver wire. So I was like, okay, great, I'm going to take advantage of this. And then that happened to be the week that they really lost the game badly or something happened. So unfortunately, streaks can't always be believed, and that just happened one too many times for me to make the playoffs.
Let's take a look at your lineup.
Sure.
Tell me about them.
Okay.
Who's on your team? Who are some of your favorites? Who's grown into who have grown into your favorites this year?
Got it. So my quarterback is Dak Prescott.
Tried and true.
Yeah. I was going to draft Baker Mayfield, and then he was drafted right before I picked him up. So I was like, you know what? I guess I'm going to take a risk on Dak Prescott, and I'm so glad I did.
You made the right call.
I did, yeah, which is another thing that I can't wait to see my notes again, because why was I going to go with Baker Mayfield? I mean, a lot of people thought that he might be the first or the next unique Super Bowl win for a quarterback. That's not going to happen.
I have to say that a lot of the players that Sarah picked for her team were also the ones that I scouted heavily as well.
Right, which is really interesting. I mean, we conferred a little bit, but not a lot.
No.
Especially towards draft time.
Yeah, when we got to the draft, you were close to me in positioning, and so I was like, it would get to you, and you would pick someone that I wanted, and I'd be like, ugh.
Right.
Why?
which is how I knew I was on the right track.
Exactly right. Who are your two starting running backs?
I had Josh Jacobs, who I was really proud of picking up, and Amari Cooper. Sorry, not Amari Cooper, and Alvin Kamara.
It's okay to look. You can look.
No, I know these things. I just always get those two mixed up. So you're gonna cut that out.
Yep.
No, so because I actually just recently switched a few of them out. Josh Jacobs got injured last week, but he was one of the running backs that I had pretty much consistently in my lineup. He ended up being, I think he was a bit of a greener player, right, at the beginning of the season? He's a rookie. Yeah.
Yep. He's 4th in the league in rushing yards, so that tells you what kind of season he's had.
Amazing, which is, yeah, also one of the reasons why I wanted to start watching the Raiders a little bit more, because I was like, oh, they're fostering this amazing new player, and then the Raiders kind of a little bit. When this is a podcast form, you won't be able to tell I'm making a sinking ship motion. But that's what it is.
Well, I mean, it's just kind of like the downward trend of your team. It's just kind of what happened.
Yeah.
You were rolling along, and then all of a sudden the wheels fell off right at the end.
Right, exactly.
And it's funny that you talk about players that are popular. Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
Who was I don't remember if you had the 2nd or 3rd draft pick, but you were right up there.
I had the 2nd pick, yeah, because people thought I was going to pick Barkley.
Right.
And I really wanted to pick Kamara, who did really well the first few weeks.
I mean, he's the 2nd or 3rd pick for a reason.
Yeah.
Because he's really good.
Yeah.
It's just like he didn't have the best season this year.
No, he didn't. And I know that's not a lot of his fault. He did have, I think, a fumble last weekend.
He was injured for a little bit.
Yeah. It bothers me a bit, though, that I was reading that he was a must-start still, because I'm like, what constitutes a must-start?
Somebody who has shown that they can put up lots and lots of points consistently.
Yeah, but if the needle's pointing towards no, and if he's only going to get a few yards, I mean, he got 2.3 points, including, I guess, the fumble. And I think he had some negative yards last weekend, too. But it seems like that's what was going to happen. So why does that constitute a must-start?
Who are the running backs on your bench?
The running backs on my bench... So I had benched Jacobs because he was out.
Right, but primarily Kamara and Jacobs are your two starters.
They are, yes. And then I also have Kenyon Drake.
Okay. There is no world in which you start Kenyon Drake over Alvin Kamara.
I know.
You just don't do that.
That's
the reason. There's no world in which you start Josh Jacobs over Alvin Kamara either. Like, there's a reason that Kamara was the 3rd pick in the draft this year. He is one of the best running backs in the league. Maybe he's not having his best season, but if he's up there, he's up there. Like, until when Odell really fell off the map, when they realized that, okay, so the Browns aren't going to throw him the ball because the Browns are terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Odell kind of fell out of that must-start category.
Mm-hmm.
Because when Kamara's in, he can still put up upwards of 10 points a game. That's why he's a must-start.
That's true. I guess if I had a better bench, though, that would have made me question it a bit more.
You do not know, none of us do, how players are going to do on any given day.
No, but you can follow trends.
Yeah, you can, but, sometimes trends are broken. Like,
Yeah.
what if you had sat him and he went out for 17 points?
Yeah. Yeah.
Tell me more about your wide receiver bunch, which I feel like was a very strong point for you this season.
Yeah, they were sort of like the dark horse group on my roster. I had Cortland Sutton, I had Godwin, I had Terry McLaurin, I had Amari Cooper. And between the 4 of them, usually someone was being extremely reliable several weeks in a row. Usually Amari Cooper was putting up a lot of points, so I would start him. Godwin, I learned early on that I should never bench Godwin. I mean, God and Win are both in his name, so just put him on your team. Cortland Sutton's on the Broncos, which I know that they haven't had the best season, and I know that they haven't had the best track record recently in years past, but That's one of the things I've learned is that bad teams don't mean bad players. You can have amazing players who are just kind of carrying their team.
That's right, absolutely.
And Cortland Sutton did that over and over and over again.
For sure. I predict that Cortland Sutton will be up in the top echelon of wide receivers next season.
Yes.
For sure.
Terry McLaurin, too, he was new. He didn't even have a picture on the ESPN app. We didn't know what he looked like
right.
at the beginning. But I had heard early on that he was one to watch, so I jumped on him right at the right time. And unfortunately, as the Washington team kind of shuffled their players around, and just being the Washington team that they are, and they don't have the best defense, they don't have the best offense.
They don't really have the best anything.
Yeah, they're just not managed well right now. His opportunities grew fewer and fewer and fewer throughout the season, but he was still a really worthwhile pick, I think, and definitely gave me some of those wins early on. I was super happy to pick up that guy.
Who else on your team sticks out to you as who else on your team sticks out to you as far as like important players go, other than the ones that we've mentioned?
Honestly, the players that I mentioned, those are the ones that were my key players. Those are the ones that were my ideal players. I never found a tight end that I felt really good about. I stuck with the Minnesota Vikings defense way too long, and then I started switching the defense out, but I never really landed on a defense that I felt good about. My kicker was Mason Crosby. He did well.
He's doing better this year than last year.
Yeah, definitely,
yeah.
Which was a little bit of a risk I took with him, but I had hoped that he would after having last year. I was like, any professional would really go back to the field and just be like, man, I can't have another year like that.
Right.
And over and over, he's proved himself really well. I feel like there's some really good kickers this year, though. So if I had to lose him, or kickers who have shown up when they needed to. You had one.
I wholeheartedly disagree with that statement.
Really?
Yeah, I just think that the kicker situation for most teams has been really not good this year.
Really?
At all.
I guess I just feel like there are a few that...
The Cowboys just cut Brett Maher today.
No, I know.
So, like, I mean,
that
it's just really, for those who have, like, been there with their teams all season,
yeah,
it's been fine.
Sure.
Like, Justin Tucker is making kicks, Mason Crosby is making kicks, but, like, the Patriots...
Will Lutz
has been making kicks.
Yeah.
The players that are on their teams through the whole year and haven't gotten hurt and haven't missed kicks, if you haven't missed kicks, you're keeping your job.
Yeah.
If you're not, you're not. The Patriots have gone through about 5 this season.
Right.
It's been bad.
Well, I can see as a Patriots fan why you would disagree with that.
I'm just upset at that whole team right now.
I know.
Yeah.
I know. I've just been surprised at seeing some kickers being used really, really well in some really hot matches. You know.
True.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kickers can make or break a team.
Mm-hmm.
For sure, when you least expect it.
Yeah, just last weekend, the Jets won with their kicker.
Yep.
He ended up kicking the field goal, and then, or still field goal if it's, okay. He ended up kicking the field goal, and then they put him on their shoulders.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, like, fantasy football-wise, too.
Yeah.
I mean, like, this past week, you know, I don't know who it was, but he had 18 points. Last week, Will Lutz had 17 points
Yeah.
for me. And that's 17 points I didn't have elsewhere.
Yeah.
It's nice to get that from your kicker.
Absolutely. And the Jets kicker, I think, had 28 points or something crazy like
That's
that.
wild.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
What is your biggest takeaway from playing fantasy football? For someone who was a true greenhorn last year to where you are now, what's the biggest piece of advice you have for anyone who's starting fantasy football or who already plays fantasy football?
The internet can easily fool you into thinking it's made of numbers. It is made of humans. It is made of people. Human elements the human element can make or break any given team. It doesn't matter what they were projected at. Projections in the end don't matter if there's sleet on the field. Projections don't matter if during practice someone bumps into another player and he lands on his wrist wrong. In the end, it just doesn't matter what all the stats are saying if you're not paying attention to what's happening with these guys. They have good days and bad days. They get sick. I mean, Sam Darnold had mono for a while, but even in less extreme cases, they are going out there with ailments. They're going out there with baggage. They're going out into strange stadiums. They're going out into maybe their home stadiums, but with strange weather. That stuff is so important to pay attention to. And a lot of it, maybe Wednesday you feel great about your team, but you really won't know until an hour before game time what that game could look like for you. So that's something I've been paying more attention to. I might feel great about my team on Wednesday. I might feel great about everything that I picked up from the waiver wire, but I can't let the ball drop. I still have to be paying attention.
That's very good. That's very poetic. Very nice.
It's also very true. I remember particularly there was one week where I was like, what happened to Dak Prescott? And then I noticed on the fantasy football Reddit thread, somebody in big bold letters had said, "Do not play Dak. I'm at the game. It is horrible out here."
It's awful. Don't do it.
Yeah, they were trying to warn us.
No! Bad idea.
No one will be able to catch a ball. You just can't do it.
Oh no, poor guy, poor Dak.
Oh, poor Dak. And I was like, okay, I forgive him a little bit because I can't call it. I can't catch a ball in sunlight. I certainly can't catch it in hail.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I have to say, from being the commissioner of the league, you've very much come a long way.
Thank you.
I'm very proud to have you in my league, for sure.
Thank you. It's super fun.
To wrap up here, you've compiled a list of things that I have kind of sort of told you to write. But it's I want to know, since you've been friends with me, what has your how has your opinion on sports changed from before you met me and then after? I think. But then also, like, what have you learned since becoming a sports fan?
Got it. Well, a lot of the things that I learned, I've sort of already tied into my discussion of my fantasy team and where I think some of that went wrong and what put me middle of the road, but also what put me at maybe 5th or 6th place as opposed to 8th this year. So I'm gonna more talk about what I've learned in general about sports sense, meaning you, since being closer to the fan element than I've been before. I feel like you and I are both really intense people. We're in a way that if we are into something, we're extremely focused and dedicated to that thing, which can absolutely be an advantage because it means we really hone in on the details of something, and we also are extremely loyal to that thing. I remember specifically asking you one time why, I think you were actually watching a Bruins game, why you watching a Bruins game felt like it was helping the Bruins win. And you said, if you could do anything to help your home team win, wouldn't you do that one little thing? I thought that was really interesting. I think because of what I just said about how it's less stats, in the end it's all humans, that's very true. I think the fans make a huge difference. I think the fans, I mean, wasn't there that whole thing going on with, was it the Cardinals? Their Twitter account, they had this whole trolling situation happen. Matthew Berry's been writing about it because he's a little salty about it. But that fan account has been interacting with the fans, or that official account has been interacting with the fans. And the way that fans interact, it really affects the gameplay. I think when I was there when we went to the Patriots-Jets game, and we saw the Jets deflate, and we saw them deflate as their fans left the stadium.
Puns.
Patriots puns.
You said that with such earnest. That was so great. just to know that you're like no pre. It's very refreshing actually to know someone with no preconceived notions of Deflategate at all. So that's very nice. It's very kind of you. Please continue.
Yeah. I knew about Deflategate, but as it was in the media, but I was just like.
But it's true. It was a total deflation by the New York Jets.
It was. I think that's been the biggest takeaway is that, you know, when you watched the Patriots lose and a bunch of us were there and you were just like in shock almost, it wasn't that you were just living in your own little vacuum. You were there with every other fan who was feeling that same way. And there's something really cool and wonderful about that. There's something really nice about having these shared experiences on such a large scale with other people, no matter where you are. It's something very it takes root really strongly. And I think that's the biggest thing I've come to respect is fan culture, because so often we hear the negative side of it. We hear about the cars that get smashed and the buildings that get burned, whether a team wins or loses. But I think I've understood more about that camaraderie and how that helps a community.
Yeah, there truly is nothing like sports in this world. They bring people together just on a massive, massive scale, like to a level that the ordinary. I mean, I hate to be that guy and be like, if you don't know, then you don't know, but it's true. Like, if you don't know, then you don't know.
Right.
You just gotta like. Sports. Hear me out. Sports don't matter. They don't matter, and they shouldn't matter, because they're not life or death. You know what they are? They're games. They're fun. They're supposed to be fun. But like, when you can rally behind, you know, like we talked about geographic locations, when you can rally behind your city, if you can do any little thing, even if that meant just like cheering your team or watching your team, you know, like willing them to do whatever it takes to win, why wouldn't you want to do that? There's something just, we get involved because there's just so much emotion involved. Like you're watching on TV and you just feel the emotion from the players and from the fans watching. It's just, it is unlike anything else on this earth, I think.
Right, and we can even see that on a micro scale with our football league, our fantasy football league at work, which is a theater. I mean, just the...
Never thought that I'd be doing a fantasy football league at a theater, number one.
Right, and the diversity of backgrounds and professions that exist within, even though we all work at the theater, you don't work at a theater in the capacity that we do and only work at a theater. You work at the theater because you love the theater, but you also do other things. And so the diversity of backgrounds that went into this football league, this fantasy football league, and still everybody's finding this enjoyment out of it is really spectacular.
I agree, yeah. Man, sports are the best. Sports really are the best.
I am glad to finally be seeing that light a little bit.
Yeah. Read your little list there.
Oh, yeah, this is just a recap list of the things that I learned.
Okay, try me. This is like just NFL based, is it not?
Just fantasy football based.
Go ahead and read that list.
Number 3 may surprise you.
Number 3 will shock you.
Careful drafting too many players on the same team. I guess this is one I didn't really go into that much. But yes, the Cowboys, as much as I've started to have affection for the Cowboys, I wish I didn't always have Prescott and Cooper. It's
so tempting to do this too, you know, to want to draft players on the same team. Like, and sometimes you just don't realize that if you delve into such in-depth research, you look at them, at least if you're me, you look at them by their statistical value. You don't realize that they're on the same team.
Yep,
and
I did
if
not
one
realize.
player gets volume, the other player probably isn't going to get volume.
Right.
Because you can't throw it to different players on the same team at the same time.
Yes, exactly. Bad teams don't make bad players. And I mentioned I have Kenyon Drake. He has never won a game this season. He went from the winless Dolphins to the winless Cardinals and just never won. But that doesn't mean he hasn't been giving me points. That doesn't mean he hasn't been doing a lot for his team. He has. It hasn't been enough to put them over their opponents, but he has been doing a lot for their teams. Josh Gordon, by the way, prior to last week, he was the only player to have won every single team. Again, it was just a really fortunate trade situation, which I just find really interesting that could happen, especially mid-season. Number 3, the defense is way more important than I thought it would be, but I was thinking about it, I still understand why it's in the draft order where it is. I see why you would still want wide receivers first, running backs first, a quarterback first.
Well, there's a reason that I swap out my defenses pretty much every week.
Yeah.
It's because every defense can get you 10 points if they're good enough. And if they're good enough on that particular day based on who their team. It's also interesting because defenses are a unit. Defenses are 11 players versus one player who's, getting you however many points per week.
And it can be so easy to just ignore the defense because it is so many people lumped in together, but that's something I definitely need to pay more attention to. And I also would read things and be like, oh yeah, the Vikings, they're fine. They're a good top defense. But also these places that are saying, oh, the Vikings are really good, they don't see our draft. They don't see what options I have. So they're not saying, oh, but why wouldn't you go with the Steelers this week? Or why would you go with the Jets this week?
They might not realize that the Vikings are playing the Seahawks or something like that.
Right, exactly.
Which the Vikings are a good team on paper, not against the Seahawks.
Yes. So that's one thing I'm definitely going to be paying more attention to. Weather.
Weather.
I just have weather written down.
Okay.
I need to pay more attention to the weather.
It's so bad out here. Don't start, Jack.
Don't start, Jack. It's awful. I can't feel my face. Okay. Thank you. Weather/Reddit.
Right.
Honestly. I want a better balance of veterans and rookies. Which is funny because the first year I feel like I did all veterans. This year I feel like I did pretty much all rookies. I'm going to try to do a good mix next year. I'm going to go over some of the big name players early in the draft.
Good for you. There's a reason that they're up there.
Exactly.
Because they're good.
Exactly.
Your idea of going for all these sleepers and things like that was bold, especially if they all pay off.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, sometimes you have to go with the best player available because they're the best player available.
Exactly. And that but is why I'm at 5.
Right.
Maybe 6. And the last thing that I learned was sometimes I do just really need to go with my gut and not projections.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
If I am not feeling a player, I'm not going to play a player.
Kata says this literally all the time, and go with your gut. Don't trust the projections. Just go with what you feel is right.
Right, exactly. It was really hard to do that though at the beginning because first of all I was winning a lot at the beginning, and second of all, what gut did I have to go on?
Exactly.
You know, my gut was probably saying I want fries. It wasn't telling me who to play.
It's impossible to be good at this game. It is impossible to be good at this game because no one can read the future. No one can see the future.
Well, okay. Now that we've gone through my list.
You're gonna look at me and you're gonna tell me that I'm wrong?
Yes, I am.
She wore heels and came down in a bubble, Doug. You're gonna tell me that I'm wrong?
I'm gonna tell you that you're wrong.
Okay.
Because you were looking at maybe winning for the second year in a row.
Yeah.
So I want you to tell me a little bit.
Oh, yes, correct.
You.
For the record, I am 1 week away from advancing to my second consecutive fantasy football championship game.
Right. Which is why I nicknamed you out of spite last year the Puppet Master, because you create these leagues that we all play in so that you can win. Thankfully, March Madness didn't go that way for you, but it almost did, and this year it might.
Yeah.
And then you adopted that name affectionately.
I did. So, I was talking to Nick, my brother, who is also co-host of the show, and he has told me that I showed him my lineup, and he said there is no way in hell that your team should be 9-3
exactly
at the position that it's in. I mean, my team is just not. My team is average. My team is average and Lamar Jackson.
Okay, remind us who your team besides Lamar Jackson is.
Okay, so my main players, my running backs that I like to start are Devontae Freeman, who hasn't done anything this year, James Conner, who is consistently hurt, and Austin Eckler, who was doing really, really well at the beginning of the season, and then Melvin Gordon came back, and so his productivity was cut in half. Mm-hmm. So you've got 2 guys who are basically ineffective, and you've got 1 guy who started really effective and then went to not being effective at all. My wide receivers that I like to start, Odell Beckham Jr. and T.Y. Hilton. T.Y. Hilton's hurt, probably done for the year. Odell Beckham Jr. has showed us that he's not the football player that the Browns brought him in to be. Mm-hmm. So the wide receivers that I've started in his place are DJ Moore, who has come to be one of the up-and-comers in Carolina, especially with the quarterback change. That's been very helpful to have a young quarterback throwing to a young guy that he enjoys to throw to. So they're becoming best friends. Your best friend's going to throw the ball to your best friend.
Which is, just interestingly enough,
right,
why Terry McLaurin's productivity started to go down, because
Dwayne Haskins started to throw to another guy who went to
OSU?
That's right, Ohio State.
Well, Dwayne Haskins, I think, also went to OSU, and
That's
so
what
did
I'm
Terry McLaurin.
Right.
Yeah, so all of them did, but, you know.
But he's throwing to his other friend who went to Ohio State as well.
Exactly.
So you build friends in this league. They're not statistics, they're people. Another person I like is Marvin Jones Jr., who's had who's had 9 touchdowns. He actually leads the league in touchdown catches, but he's very feast and famine. Mm-hmm. Other players include Austin Hooper, who I picked. I was the last person in the draft to pick a tight end, and my tight end's the #1 tight end in football this year.
Yeah, how did that happen?
I don't know how it happened. Other wide receivers I like to start are John Brown. Like, John Brown kind of came out of nowhere in the middle of the season for me, and he's been doing really, really well in Buffalo.
So what made you pick him at the beginning?
What made me pick him up from waivers?
Yeah.
It was the fact that I don't remember who the Bills were playing. It may have been Cincinnati, may have been the Bengals.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, okay. So I love Matthew Berry's love-hate lists.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, yeah, so I'm just going to pick somebody up. And it was after I picked Brown up and he ended up going off. I think he had, more than 10 points. I realized, and once I realized that, like, the Bills were, like, for real, I was like, okay, I think we've got something with John Brown. Going off of John Brown, the Bills' defense has also been really good for me this year.
That's true, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about, I had the Bills' defense, I picked them in the draft, dropped them for a few weeks, and then picked them back up again, and now they're still in my starting lineup.
Yeah.
It's been a wild ride for the Bills' defense, and they're not one that I would have picked ordinarily if I had. I think I literally said, why not? Why the hell not? And picked the Bills' defense.
Yeah.
I almost went for the Patriots' defense. I was really close to doing that.
Oh yeah, the Patriots defense, which pretty much handed wins to that one player in our league
Correct.
week after week.
Correct. That's fine. My other players that I have on my team are James White, who is very feast and famine this year.
Mm-hmm.
He's been doing well the last 2 weeks only because the Patriots have been losing, and when they're losing, they tend to give the ball to James White to try to come from behind.
Oh.
Not sure why. With the Patriots have a receiving running back and a running running back. They have Sonny Michel, who they run the ball with.
Sonny Mitchell.
And they have James White, who they throw the ball to out of the backfield. And so when they're losing, they're going to throw the ball, and they're going to give it to James White, whose nickname is Sweet Feet. So,
Amazing.
Yeah. I also like Will Lutz, my kicker, who's been my bread and butter so far this year, and Hunter Henry, who I wanted to draft, but our boss scooped him.
Yes.
And then he got hurt. And then he came back, and while he was hurt, our boss dropped him from his team, and I picked him up.
That's right.
So I finally, for the first time, feel confident about my starting tight end and my backup tight end.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
There is no way in hell that my team should be where am I now? It says here 10-3. I'm 9-3-1 with my tie. I consider myself to be a really good game manager.
Yes.
I think I play my matchups well, even if my players aren't very good. Sometimes I get lucky. I have a threshold of points that I try to meet. I always try to meet 93 points because I feel like that's like an average, a good number of points to aim for to win at. Mm-hmm. So I always try to shoot for 93. I always try to give myself the best chance to win. Always. Yeah. Whether that's by projections or just by playing matchups, it varies.
Right. Well, I mean, I think I could argue that everyone almost, setting your lineup is trying to give themselves the best chance to win. But the question is everyone taking these multiple factors into account? Is everyone looking at the matchups too? That's another thing I've learned this year is that the matchups are so important. And I think I did start to do better when I started to pay more attention to the matchups.
But sometimes you just can't control it.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes you're going to be playing the Miami Dolphins, and you're going to have the Philadelphia Eagles defense, and the Eagles will go up 13-0, and you'll be like, okay, everything's great. And then you take a nap, and you wake up, and the Dolphins have scored 37 points, and all of a sudden the Eagles defense is at -3, and you're like, what the hell happened?
Right.
Sometimes you just can't control shit like that.
Right. Sometimes you have Jets defense, and they're against the Miami Dolphins.
And they allow 33 points and have -5. It happens.
And they win because their kicker kicked it through the post.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. Whew.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, so I've been kind of thinking that there are in our league good teams and then there are good managers. I think you're a good manager. I think I have a good team.
Correct.
And
I'm a good manager with the MVP on my team.
Right, you're a good manager with the MVP on your team. I think my team was good, but then when they started faltering, I didn't manage them well enough.
Which is not to say that you're not a good manager. It's just like a perfect storm of things happen.
Yeah.
It's unfortunate, but
it's interesting too because there are other teams in our league where I feel like that's the same case too. Like even the one that has the Patriots defense, he doesn't really have a team. There's no coherence there. There's no consistency there. But he drops and picks up like crazy.
Like crazy. He's up to I think 50 pickups this year. Yeah. Which is crazy, even though he doesn't play half of them.
Yeah, exactly.
A lot of it is mind games, so he can, so he'll pick him up so that you can't.
Exactly.
Right.
Which is kind of what I did too with Bilal Powell this past weekend. I picked him up. I was like, maybe I should play him instead of Kenyon Drake. It ended up not super mattering. But I just wanted to make sure nobody else got him.
Yeah, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Whew, this has been very insightful.
Good.
Yeah, it has. I think it's time to wrap it up though.
Yeah.
This has been really good.
Good.
Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Appreciate it.
It's been very, very informative, and I've enjoyed talking with you very much. So, if you like what you've heard, be sure to give us a follow on all of our social media. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, using the handle at UFR Vodcast with a V. Our video, our simulcast of our podcast, our video portion is found on YouTube. Our podcast comes out every Thursday wherever you can find podcasts, except for Spotify because we're not that cool yet. And if you have any questions or concerns, or if you have any questions or comments or anything like that, please feel free to send them to our email. That's andrewankata@gmail.com. And if you send us mail, we'll probably like it, and we'll read it on the show and we'll shout you out.
Yeah.
That's all I've got. Any parting words before you head out here?
Please say hi to me on Twitter. I'll send you a gif of a red panda.
Yes, Sarah runs our Twitter, so tweet at her and she will send you lots and lots of gifts.
Yeah.
Sarah Feet, thank you so much for joining us today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
That is all the time that we have. I'm Andrew.
I'm Sarah.
Peace out, everybody.